to piece them back together, but they're beyond repair. Carly, sobbing. My beautiful drawings, all gone. Bubbles emerges from his hiding place, gently hugging Carly as she holds her knees, face hidden. Carly can't stop crying, having a mental breakdown. Bubbles helps her into bed, where she cries herself to sleep, hugging herself tightly. Bubbles, looking at the locked door. Growling softly, Bubbles moves towards the door, his eyes fixed on the lock. Fade out, Carly, rubbing her eyes. Bubbles? Where's Bubbles? Carly gets out of bed, flashlight in hand, and unlocks the door. She hears another bang, followed by a gurgling sound coming from her brother's room. Carly, whispering, Evan? Evan, is that you? Carly slowly opens the door, and what she sees makes her blood run cold. Bubbles is holding Evan by the throat, biting down on his face. Evan's body convulses as Carly walks in, frozen in shock. Bubbles! Releasing Evan. Evan's body drops to the floor, blood splattering on Carly's face. Carly, confused and frightened. Bubbles, what have you done? Bubbles approaches Carly, tongue retracting, and bites onto her neck. But instead of bloodlust, Carly just yawns. Carly, sleepily. I'm so tired, Bubbles. I feel sleepy. Carly falls asleep, leaning on Bubbles, as the room fades to black. Fade out. Ivan, can we talk about your roommate Sarah? What happened to her? Carly, frowning. Do we have to? We both know I never liked her, but I wasn't the one who did that. Ivan, gently. I know you didn't, dear child, but let's go over it one more time. Your roommate Sarah, she was a bully, you say? Carly, pouting. She bullied everyone here, especially since I was her roommate. She'd watch me sleep and hit me in the back of the head. I didn't like her at all. She became my roommate when I came here. Ivan, nodding. I see. And did Bubbles ever intervene? Carly, mumbling. She'd mess up my drawings like Evan and would always complain about me staying awake. It's my fault I can't sleep well. I still got the bruises, but Bubbles once again let me sleep, which I am thankful for. Ivan nods, writing down notes on his clipboard. Ivan, softly. Okay, Carly, that's enough for now. Let's focus on the sleep study. Carly looks up, a mix of sadness and gratitude on her face. Carly, whispering, Thank you, Ivan. I just want to sleep. Ivan smiles, patting her hand. Ivan, reassuringly, You will, Carly, you will. Fade out. Ivan, to himself. Yes, that's all I need to hear. Not a play-by-play of the details. Ivan closes the notebook and writes on the board, Carly's fingerprints nowhere on Sarah. No indication of involvement. Strength required. Beyond Carly's capability. Carly. Drowsily. Lie down. Carly lies down on the bed, getting comfortable as Ivan administers something through her IV. She slowly drifts off to sleep. Ivan, to himself. Everything seems normal. Yvonne leaves the room, mentioning he needs a coffee to stay focused. But as he exits, the doors reopen. Carly, eyes open, paralyzed. Carly's eyes dart around the room, stuck in a state of sleep paralysis. Machines beep erratically, showing strange brain readings. Bill, to the others. Quickly, we need to get this done. Sammy, staring at Carly with hatred. You killed my sister. Lori, to Bill. Make sure the door is secure. Bill props chairs against the door, using cords to tie the handle. Sammy, leaning over Carly. You're going to pay for what you did. Carly's eyes remain fixed on Sammy, unable to move or speak. Fade out, Sammy. Determined. We're doing this for Sarah. Got it? Sammy picks up a scalpel and drags it across her own cheek, causing it to bleed. She doesn't flinch, her eyes locked on Carly. Bill. Turning away. Ugh, Sarah was right. This bitch is freaky. Sammy. Slapping Carly. Wake up! Carly's eyes flicker, then lock onto something behind Sammy. Sammy stops, noticing Carly's gaze. Lori. Turning around. What's going on? Lori sees the security camera turning to face the corner, and another camera with wires turned around. Lori. Confused. What the? The lights start to flicker and pop. The building's lights dim, leaving only one bulb lit over Carly. Sammy. Looking up. What's happening? A hand made of metal hangers, fluid like tentacles, reaches out of the shadows and grips the last bulb. It pops, leaving only the light around Carly. And Sammy. Carly. Eyes locked on the darkness. Bubbles. Fade out. Lori. Terrified. Bill. No. Bill's body is dragged into the darkness, his screams becoming gargled by blood before falling silent. Lori backs into the light, trying to escape. The horror. Lori. Whispering. No, no, no. Bill's body is held up by wires like a puppet, beckoning Lori forward into the darkness. A sinister chuckle echoes through the room. The room shifts and changes, with mini doors, mirrors, and crawl spaces appearing. The only constant is the light around Carly. Lori. Backing away. What's happening? Bill's body drops to the floor, and the wires slink into the darkness, chuckling to themselves as they crawl around the room, playing with Lori like a cat with a mouse. Lori. Screaming. Ah! Lori tries to run, but the room seems to shift and change, trapping her. Carly. Eyes still locked on the darkness. Bubbles. Fade out, fade in, into room, night. Sammy screams, holding her head. She drops her switchblade onto the bed with Carly. Sammy, terrified. No, no, no. Lori's leg is grabbed by a clawed hand and dragged into the darkness. Cut 2. The light above flickers on and off. Sammy sees Bubbles staring down at her. Bubbles, menacingly. Growl. Bubbles crushes the bulb in his hand, plunging Sammy into darkness. Cut 2. Sammy stumbling around in the dark, feeling for anything. Sammy, whispering. Mom. A buzzing sound fills the air, and a light flickers on. Sammy sees her mother's headless body. Sammy, screaming. Ah! The lights go out again. Cut 2. The emergency lights flicker on. Sammy sees Bubbles coming closer. Sammy, backing away. No. Carly stands in front of her, staring tiredly. Carly, yawning. Tired. Carly yanks the switchblade out of Sammy's throat. Sammy falls to the floor, trying to stop the bleeding. Cut 2. Bubbles bites down on Sammy's neck. Blood leaks onto the floor. Sammy, gurgling. Ah. Cut 2. Carly getting back into bed. Bubbles tucks her in. Bubbles, soothingly. Shh. Bubbles bites down on Carly's arm. Her veins seem to glow slightly before she relaxes. Carly, yawning, sleepy. Cut 2. Ivan screaming and banging on the door. Ivan, desperately. What's wrong? Bubbles replaces the broken bulb and slips under the bed, disappearing into the shadows. Fade out. Fade in. Int. Mental ward room. Day. The room is dark. The only light comes from the small window high up on the wall. Carly sleeps soundly in her bed. Ivan, OS. Carly? Carly, can you hear me? The sound of banging on the door grows louder. Ivan, OS. Open the door, Carly. This isn't funny. Carly stirs slightly but doesn't wake up. The banging becomes frantic. Ivan, OS. Carly, I know you're in there. Open up. Suddenly, the sound of the banging stops. A moment of silence, then a soft scraping sound. Carly, VO. Bubbles? Carly opens her eyes slightly. She sees a dark shape moving near the door. Carly, VO. What are you doing? The scraping sound continues. A low growl comes from near the door. Fade out. Int. Mental ward hallway. Day. Ivan stands outside Carly's room, his back pressed against the door. He holds a metal chair in his hands, his knuckles white. His face is streaked with sweat and fear. He hears a metallic clanging sound from behind the door. He looks around frantically, then back at the door. He takes a deep breath and raises the chair. Ivan. Carly, this is your last chance. Open the door or I'm breaking it down. Silence. Ivan hesitates, then brings the chair down with a crash against the doorknob. The metal splinters, but the door holds. He slams the chair against the door again and again, his breathing ragged. Fade out. Inti. Mental ward room. Day. The sound of the banging on the door echoes through the room. Carly sits up in bed, her eyes wide with fear. She looks at the dark shape near the door. It's Bubbles, but he looks different. His form is more defined, more menacing. His single eye glows red in the darkness. Carly. VO. Bubbles. What's happening? Bubbles lets out a low growl. He turns away from the door and walks towards Carly. He stops at the side of the bed and looks down at her. His single eye flickers between red and a normal black. Carly. VO. It's okay, Bubbles. We'll be fine. Bubbles leans down and nuzzles Carly's cheek with his long, slimy tongue. She shivers. Fade out. Int. Mental ward hallway. Day. Ivan throws his weight against the door, but it doesn't budge. He lets out a frustrated scream. He looks around wildly for something else to use. He sees a fire extinguisher mounted on the wall. He grabs the fire extinguisher and rips it from the wall. He charges at the door and smashes the glass on the extinguisher against the doorknob. The alarm starts blaring. Fade to black. Fade in. Int. Mental ward. Hallway. Day. The hallway echoes with the piercing shriek of the fire alarm. Ivan coughs, clutching the fire extinguisher in his hand. Sweat drips down his face, mixing with the tears of fear in his eyes. He throws himself at the door again, this time using the extinguisher as a battering ram. The metal groans under the assault, but remains. Stubbornly shut. Ivan. Screaming. Help! Somebody help! His voice is hoarse from shouting. He looks around, his gaze falling on his phone lying forgotten on the floor. With a shaking hand, he scrambles to grab it and dials security. INT. Mental Ward Security Office. Day. A bored-looking security guard, Mark, sits at his desk, flipping through a magazine. The insistent ringing of the phone jolts him upright. He glances at the caller ID, Dr. Ivan. He sighs, rolls his eyes, and picks up the receiver. Mark. Security, Mark speaking. Ivan. Frantic. Mark, it's Dr. Ivan. There's an emergency in room 312. You need to get here now. Mark. Scoffs. Another psych patient throwing a tantrum, Doc? I'll be there when I get there. Ivan.